Welcome to another unboxing video from theplayersaid.com. My name's Alexander, and today we're taking a look at Warfighter Vietnam from DVG. DVG is Danvers and Games, if you don't know that, and Warfighter is a pretty long-standing series at this point of solitaire / co-op, kind of pulpy tactical operations in a card game, basically. It comes in a nice big box because there is a board, but it's primarily a card game. We have played a lot of Warfighter. I have the big kind of Warfighter war chest, which has, or the footlocker is what it's called, well, all the World War II stuff in it. I don't have all of it, but I have a lot of it. There is Warfighter Modern, which is kind of just regular kind of Special Forces, Delta, that kind of stuff. They had kind of a Black Ops version. They had a private military contractor version. They had a fantasy version. I think there, in theory, is a sci-fi one in the works. But there's all sorts of Warfighter, but finally we've got a Vietnam box, and I'm actually really excited. I've had a bit of a nose through this, and I'm very, very, very interested to play this. As this particular one does come in more of a 3-inch box. Some of the other ones came in a bit of a shorter box, and it was kind of hard to put everything back in if you were just using this, but there's a lot of room in this for other of the expansions if you do get them. There are some card pack expansions. We have a couple, but not all of them, but that's something that you can look forward to as well. So, in the box, we have a few different bits and pieces here. So we have a keywords card, and it's not really a card, they call it a card, but it's a... These are keywords, and what I will tell you is you're going to read the rules once, and then you're going to set up and play, and there's tons and tons of keywords on all of the different units, on the skills, on the weapons, and you'll just literally look, like if something will say crush on it. Cool, crush. What does crush mean? Crush does this. This is basically a rules quick reference guide that is extremely important. And I know this is long, but the reality is in a given scenario, you won't use hardly any of these. You'll use a couple of them, and then you'll just have them remembered. But this covers every single keyword and every single card. Again, on a scenario basis, you don't need to look those up all the time. So we do have a stack of cardboard here, and these are our playing pieces. Well, these are some of the chits. Most of the cards are playing pieces. So we have these numbers. You're going to put one on your soldier card, and you're going to put one going through the objective cards to denote which soldier is in which location. That's effectively what these are. There's 8 of them. So ammunition markers, enemy KIA markers, and these are all dual-sided. So you have different kind of stances of things that you're doing as well. Empty ammo markers, suppression markers, and these are all very thick grey core counters, and they're all pre-rounded enough. Some hardy markers, which is, you know, the heat and humidity. When things get very extreme, you have to contend with that. That might cause you some negative effects. These are some aim markers or some targeting markers. So you can be targeted by a number of different enemies at any given time. There's 1 through 8 to correspond to the 1 through 8 characters that you might be playing around with as well. Some numerical markers for different effects that you might have going off. Numerical, some lettered markers. And then we have equipment markers, so fuel for flamethrowers, digging foxholes, melee, what do they call that? There's a name for that, but these are melee markers, basically. Grenades, everything that you might expect in a tactical style war game. Wound markers, wound treated markers, and these are experience points that you're going to gain. Action markers that you have and haven't used. And then a bunch of different just kind of chits to help you assess the game state, basically. And those are very standard. There's obviously like particulars and nuance between those and other versions of the game, but those are very typical from what you would expect from a Warfighter game. So next up we have the board, which I'm going to unfold here. It's kind of awkward doing this. There we go. So you can see here with the glare, this is a glossy board. It does have a linen finish on it, but this is very typical for what Warfighter looks like. But we have the nice Vietnam, kind of orange, very Apocalypse Now palette going on with the setting sun, with the Hueys, and with the kind of the radio team down here as well. So when we talk about this being a card game, this is the board, and we have a lot of those pieces, but the cards are where the game is played and what the game is. And you'll see on the board here we've got holding boxes for the locations, for the hostiles, for the action cards, and for our mission card. There's a little timer up here with some setup. We have a couple different charts and sequences of play over here to help us. But basically what we're going to do, and we'll crack these open here in a second, is we're going to have a mission that we're going to be attempting to achieve, and then we'll have an objective. And the objective will go somewhere in these kind of darkened columns. And let's say it's going to go here. And what you have to do is travel through these columns to get to the objective, and then do whatever it says on the objective. Now, to get through these, you're going to be placing location cards. So you might have a mission that says, you know, go on some patrol, and you might go through a location, and the location might be like bunai grass or like bamboo, you know, area, or it might be like go through like a rocky ridge, or it might be going through you know, a suspected VC sympathizing village, right? You're going to travel through those, defeat enemies, and the enemies will kind of line up in these columns, being in these locations, and they might also travel and follow you around, get to the objective, and you're going to knock them out. That's effectively why the board is laid out this way, so you can have some very long-distanced missions and long-timed missions, or you can have some really short, fast, and furious ones. But one of the really interesting things about this game, and something that you'll notice here, is we have this body count. And this is because in this particular game, when we think about, I think it was Westmoreland, you know, body count was so important about inflicting casualties. You will literally have missions that say, you have to, you know, defeat X amount of points worth of guys to complete the mission. It's not just about making the objective and clearing the objective. You have to have inflicted a ton of damage on the way there, which is a really different kind of take on some of the other kind of, you know, World War II Warfighter editions, which I think is really going to change how you play the game. I think that's also something that they've really injected into this to make it not just a reskin. That alone really dictates how you go about playing a game like this. So I'm very interested to see that. So let's crack open these cards, and we can kind of get on what we're talking about here. So let's look at the action cards first, and then we'll look at some of the objectives and soldiers. Let's do that. So the cards are pretty standard in size, and they come in these little wrapped areas. Let's see, can I find the opening for it? It seems like I cannot. Oh, there it is. There we go. They do have the little kind of opening tab. It's just hard for me to see at times. Okay, so these are the Warfighter Vietnam action cards, and this is all action cards, it looks like. Okay, so the action cards are a deck of cards, and there's more of them here, and they'll stack on here. And the action cards, you're going to draw a hand of these, and the action cards are going to allow you to do things. So you can pay 1 body count to gain 4 experience. It's a trade, and you spend the card to do that. So you're sacrificing body count, which you need, but you might gain experience, and that experience might help you to then proc a bunch of abilities, or to re-roll, or to do extra things that you have to then to fill up your body count and defeat more enemies. So it looks like there's a few of those, which I think is really interesting. Or you can play when a hostile is about to fade, and fade is when they kind of slip off the game. Again, that's a new thing in this one. You cancel that fade if you pay 1 body count. Also engage the hostile, add 2 to your search rolls until the end of next turn. So that's a main contact card. So there's a bunch of these, and these are just like, they break the rules, right? If you're covert 1, you can play after you roll, and covert 1, it's something that you're going to achieve, basically. Roll for hostile card's attack, cancel that attack. Lock and load. All soldiers add 1 to their ranged attack, or bracketed 2 if you spend a bunch of experience to their ranged attack rolls this soldier turn. So you're going to play this early in a turn, spend that experience, and everyone's basically upgunned, lock and load. If you pay 1 body count for every soldier in the mission, every soldier gains 1 action. So you can sacrifice a bunch of body count to lock and load, pay the experience, and everyone's going to get additional attacks, so you might like clear the whole board, so you're going to pay some body count, but the net that you're going to gain, in theory, you're going to have timed this to be well. So that's kind of what these are. These are going to allow you to do things kind of outside the rules, and you're going to draw a hand of these based on the types of soldiers that you have, which we'll get to that here in a second. So here's the other deck of these. Well, if I could get it open. It seems like there's going to be a lot of that in this video, of watching me open cards. Yeah, and I can't do it. Come in. Well, that's why I got a knife, so that we don't have to sit here and do this. I know it's riveting watching here on YouTube at the Player's Aid. Okay, here we go. Okay, so here we have some other bits and pieces. So here's the rest of the action cards, and we'll get onto this stuff here in a second. So action cards, again, more different bits and pieces. Support stuff you're going to play out, and you're going to retain this by continuing to pay this cost every turn, and where you add 4 to each soldier in your location's hardy rolls next turn. So you can continue to pay this cost, which could be punitive, to keep some of those out. So the action cards have a lot of varied things. They're pretty neat. I actually really like them. Something that's a little bit new is we have these event cards. And the event cards, I think there's more of them. These are going to go, I believe, in the hostile deck, and you're going to draw these. So you'll know when an event's coming because they've got a different back to them. But they're going to do different things. They might enhance bad guys, or they might just like put a different condition on. Again, I think that's something that's kind of new and a little bit neat. I actually like that they're really switching certain things up, and it adds to that kind of the unknown and the surprising nature of going out on Vietnam-style patrols, where there was so much that was kind of thrown at the grunts and things like that. So we have a couple of different things here. Okay, let's get these organized such that, okay. So these are also a little bit different. So normally you would have, the backs of these would be like, these are elite enemies. They're elite, they have the E on them. But in this game, you have these kind of hidden guys. If you look, they all got this kind of like jungly looking thing on them. They have some stats, but you have to go into the jungle to flush them out with these search rolls, and when you do, you flip them over, and hey, it's actually some scared farmers. Or hey, it's actually foot soldiers. Or hey, it's actually some conscripts. So you have these dual layers of threats, and my understanding is when they're hidden, it's really difficult to defeat their cover. That's 4 is really high, and they hit kind of hard. But once you flush them out, the to hit goes down, but then they're a bit more open and are going to proc all their different abilities that they normally wouldn't have had, because you know what you're going up against. So I think that's really interesting. But those are hostiles. Those are the elite ones. There's probably some normal ones in here as well. Then we have our location cards. And are these all locations? No, we have some objectives. We'll keep those separate. So the location deck's going to be up here. What you will find is in the action deck, let's see if I can find any. Typically in the action deck, you are going to find cards that will say, draw a location. They should be kicking around in here somewhere. Well, I don't know where they... Oh, I think we still haven't got through them all. But there'll be cards, you draw the action cards and they'll be like, hey, draw a location. So you're going to draw a location. This goes into your hand and you can choose if you want to play this. So again, you'll have your mission card here, and you'll play through, hey, we're going to play through a hilltop housing, and then we're going to go through a farming village, and then we're going to go through a VC trench hole, and then you'll have an objective that you're trying to get to, that you're building this bridge across, fight through all these different things, and everyone that shows up get to the end. But these are very Vietnam-centric, you know, these downtowns, these fishing villages, river ford, hooch, open river. Some of them are more urban with the market district, tunnels, roads, spider holes, rapid streams, infested rivers, burning villages, right? It's a lot of the games is not stereotypes necessarily, but it's those very common tropes, and that's what Warfighter is, right? It's a lot of pulpy, the feel of the movies that you watched about. This is what you really should expect from it. The objectives, so you're going to have a mission that you're trying to achieve. You're going to get to the dock of the bay, and House of the Rising Sun. A lot of these are thematically named, you might well imagine. It's a holding action mission. This is a fallback position, +1 additional location card, close quarters combat, critical sight, and nature. So again, these are all those keywords that we're going to refer back to the card keywords at the beginning of the game so that we know what all these things mean. We might have find a command post. You have to go here, perform a successful search to complete the objective. You subtract 2 from your search roll for each unsuppressed hostile reticle in this location. So effectively, you have to get here, you have to kill or suppress everyone to remove that negative, then you have to perform a search roll, you find the command post, the game's over at that point. But again, this is going to go in conjunction with the mission, and the mission will also have additional stipulations that we will look at here in a second as well. Okay, let's see if we can't open this naturally, or is it knife time? Dang it, it's knife time. Well, I guess that's what we're going to go with for the rest of this unboxing. Let's see if we can't find some missions to show you what that looks like. So more objectives, and that's the thing, right? You have, right here, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 objectives. And we also have mission cards. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 mission cards. And you might be like, oh, okay. If you multiply those together, or however the mathematics works out, you have a significant number of variations of what a mission and objective combination will look like. And then you'll have infinite number of what the locations and what the actual mission, actual outcome is, and what that looks like. And what I mean by that is the replayability, and this is crazy. So, let's look at this, not that one, here we go. This is our Fortunate Son mission. So, we have X amount of resources to spend on building our squad. We have 6 turns that we need to complete the mission. And this one tells you we're going to use objective 4, which means, so this is 1, 2, 3, 4. Or is this 1? I can't remember. But you're going to put the objective 4 spaces away. I think it's 1, 2, 3, 4, I believe. You have to go through 3, and then the 4th is the objective. Your loadout is -1, because it's a fast and quick mission. You can't carry as much heavy equipment. And then the body count is 14. You have to kill 14 points worth of guys. And you have to do the objective stuff as well. So again, that's where the objective and the mission come together to form a very unique scenario. Then we're going to get into skill cards. And are these all skill cards? No. Okay. And then equipment cards, which we will look at here in a second. So the skill cards are literally your soldiers will have, or you can purchase these skills with your loadout points to add onto them. A lot of skills come built into the soldiers, though. So this little upbeat mindset, after rolling for environ, so to see if you get, like, it's too hot, or you get, you know, syphilis, or you get malaria or whatever, you pay 1 XP to roll again. So you can re-roll so that you don't get jungle fever, basically. Limit once per turn. A corpsman, you add 2, or, brackets, you can spend experience to make it 4 to your heal rolls. So if you've got a corpsman kicking around, he's much better at healing guys. Automatic rifleman, so you're skilled with an automatic rifle. You add 1 to your ranged auto attack rolls, which again is a specific kind of attack roll. Pay 1 body count to gain 1 ranged auto attack per turn. So you can sacrifice body count, which is a victory condition, right? On here, you need 14. You can sacrifice 1 to gain an additional attack, which might net you more body count points from killing an additional guy. But that's skills. Skills are skills. It's kind of self-explanatory. Equipment, very similar. A lot of the equipment is built into guys, but some of the, like where it's like, hey, this guy has this, but some of them you have a lot of options to load it out. So you have a hardy canteen. You can use it to draw action cards or to gain hardy, which makes you more resilient to environmental effects. A medical bag, which is going to give you bandages and give you access to heal rolls. You might put that on the corpsman skill so that he's really good at those things. Some binoculars, which gives you a roll to help you search for guys and move the top location card into your hand. Because you might have bad locations, but if you use your binoculars, you can pick more of those outside of what you normally would. Maybe that's how you do those, and they move them from the action cards, which I think is really an interesting change. But yeah, equipment is equipment, kind of what you would expect as well. And in this one, let's see what we've got here. I think we've got more skills and bits and pieces. So, this is a quick reference card for unarmed combat and for shadow attacks. This is just like a little play aid. So more action cards. That's quite a lot more action cards. Okay, well this is where our action cards went. And let's make sure just these ones should have all of our location. There we go. So we've got location markers. Discard to draw 1 location. You can pay 1 body count or 3 XP to instead draw 2 locations. So that's really, really neat. And you'll see there's a whole bunch of these because you have to fish through to get locations to be able to actually complete the mission. Yeah, you have some battle fatigues, which are just, those suck. You gain battle fatigue cards. Oh god, there's a lot of those. Okay. Battle fatigue cards don't start in this deck, is my understanding. But game effects will say you get battle fatigue or add fatigue to the deck and things like that. So I think that's something that goes in, probably from environmental or hardy fail rolls, things like that. But the rest of these are regular action deck cards. But again, I think these are new. I've not seen these in other ones that I remember. But again, they're making new changes, which I really appreciate, to keep it fresh. And I think the changes they've made are quite thematic as well. Where it's that exhaustion, it's that fatigue, it's being out on the march for, you know, days, weeks at a time. Okay, a couple more equipment cards that we've got here. And so we've got weapon cards. We have a vehicle, we have aircraft, vehicle. Let's get those vehicle cards and the aircraft cards. Vehicle, and then we've got some of these, and then we've got soldiers, which we'll look at. Okay, so that's everything we've got left. So weapon cards are exactly what they say they are. M1911, M16A1, Stoner 63, an old Stoner 63, so just a crappier one. Like it's just heavier and less good. But that's what you get, right? So these are all different weapons that you, again, might come attached with soldiers, or you can assign to your soldiers. So you want to get, you know, your guy who's really good with an auto weapon. We had the auto rifleman skill. You know, give him the machine gun, because he's going to roll his auto rolls. He might deploy his bipod to gain spray, which means he's going to do more damage to more guys. That's the kind of thing that you're looking at there. So weapons are weapons are weapons. I think that's fairly self-explanatory. There are also, you can add vehicles to your teams. What's interesting is that these guys have like a 2-turn limit. And you can only use them in certain missions if you're playing campaigns and things like that. So the gunboat shows up for 2 turns, and he's going to shoot his mortars and his machine guns to give you support, but then he's going to have to bugger off, basically. You've got a Jeep who's got a 1-turn limit. You roll up, he's going to drive you a couple of locations. You're going to shoot, and he's going to drive away. You have your M113 APCs, got an M42 Duster, flamethrower, you know, and an ambulance, right? That's pretty neat. So those are very, again, self-explanatory. Do what you think they're going to do. We do have aircraft support, which I don't know if I've played with aircraft support before, but very similar type of thing. Pay 1 action to place a suppress on a hostile card in this location. Pay 1 action for 1 soldier to gain 1 action this turn. Soldiers in this location gain fearless. 2-turn limit, light vehicle, health 3, 3 actions, has 2 cover at range 0. So he's going to, you bring him along, it's 10 points, and he does some extra bits and pieces for a couple turns, right? We've got a gunship who can actually do some attacks and things like that, but he only shows up for 1 bit, does his thing, and then goes away. And that costs you 10 loadout points, which is a lot. But playing around with some of these extra additional things, I think is really enjoyable, and it's something that's very worthwhile. So here's the service records. So service records are things that, again, your soldiers might have naturally, or you can assign to them, depending on what it is. And they have costs on them. And it says who you can put it on a player soldier, a non-player soldier, or a squad soldier. But you can't put it on a team soldier. So it tells you who you can do it and who you can do it to, basically. And what these do is this is kind of like, oh, they were, as part of the Battle of Dalat, they gained the Street Rat ability and the Prepared Shooter ability. And that's what those lettered counters were for. And you can use this, you can proc A twice to add 2 to your move when entering a structure location. If we remember the locations, a bunch of them were structures, and they would say structure on them. Let's see if I have a good example of that. This one says structure as a keyword on it, right? So the keywords often just reference each other. This tells you where you can do that. Makes it easier for you to run around in the buildings. Prepared shooter, you can proc this twice. Add 2 to your penetration roll in a structure location. So you run around in the buildings, you're better at fighting in the buildings because you fought in the Battle of Dalat in 68. All right, it's really that simple, but that's what these are. They're just like extra flavor that give you some access to different abilities as well. So finally, well, I guess it's second finally, let's look at the soldiers themselves. So I think in this one we have a lot of American soldiers, but we also have a lot of Arvan soldiers as well. And I do like that there's a nice mix of those. You can kind of load them out how you want. But you have a cost of how much is this going to cost you. This guy doesn't have any other designation underneath it, which means he is a player soldier. He can carry 10 points of equipment, but it would be -1 if you're playing Fortunate Son because they just weren't carrying as much on that mission. He's got 5 hit points, and he has a +0 hand-to-hand. He's got a 3 movement entry cost, which is pretty good, but he's only got a 1 cover roll, which is very bad. He's got 1 hardy, which is decent. He's carrying 2 grenades, and he already has the battle fatigue. Battle fatigue. Not great. But he doesn't have any equipment, so he's the guy that you're going to then pay. Okay, cool, I'm going to pay, you know, an extra 2 points to give him an M16. I'm going to pay an extra $2 to give him, or I'm going to pay $1 to give him some jungle survival gear as well. I might give him a lucky helmet. It's going to cost her an extra $1. But they also have these loadout points, right? So this costs 3 of my 10 down to 9 loadout points, for example. And so there's a bunch of these. This guy costs 28. He's really bad at going anywhere, but he's got really good cover. He can carry a whole bunch of stuff. He's got really good health. He's got 4 CX, which means he's going to draw additional action cards. Search +3. He's really good at finding things. He has an M60 machine gun with him, so he comes equipped with the M60 that you do not have to pay extra for. What do I do with it? I can't find it now. So you don't have to pay extra for this, but you would have had to have paid extra to put it on him. But he also has a bunch of battle fatigue as well. But he's really expensive. So it's all the toss-up of, do you want a really good guy that comes with a bunch of stuff? Or do you want a little guy and you can kind of equip him how you want, but maybe squeeze him in where you couldn't? But all of these are player soldiers that allow you to... I think that was the end of them there. So these are all of the regular player soldiers that allow you to do that. What you then get onto are these team soldiers. So the team soldiers are almost identical to them, except that your team soldiers do not carry a hand of cards. As such, generally speaking, they're cheaper, but there's only 2 of them in this base game, but they're still very customizable. You can do a lot with these guys. That's very different from these non-player soldiers. So the non-player soldiers tell you all their actions. They have a fixed loadout that you can't modify. And so they all come with like guns, and they're just less good, but they're cheaper generally speaking. But these are much less customizable as well. And then finally you have these SQS, these squad soldiers, that don't even really have equipment and skills in the same way. They just have these same, you know, if you hit on a 6 at range 1, you're going to kill. If they hit on a 4 at range 0, they're going to kill. So they just have like generic stats on them, but they're really cheap, and they're bodies to kind of fill out squads to give you more stuff to do and more guys to play around with. But they have fixed capacities in them, and you can't load them out with all the other extra goodies. But they are really important. You can't forget those. So that's all of that. The last thing that we have in the box are the dice, and I'm really happy with the dice. So they have these nice, great green dice for the jungle, but instead of having 10s and 6s, they have these little M16s on them, which I think is pretty cool. And so you're going to roll these, typically you're going to roll 1d10 and 1d6. This is your defeat cover roll that you need to beat this number, and this is their to hit roll that you need to hit whatever the target number is for your weapon that you're using. If you're using an auto, you might roll 3d10, and you're looking for one of these results to hit. So you defeat cover, and as long as one of these hits, you're good to go. But if you have spray on, you can inflict multiple hits, but that's a special ability that you have to kind of proc and turn on as well. So if you get into big machine guns or flamethrowers, you can do lots of damage, but it's usually very resource intensive. But that's everything that you get in the Warfighter Vietnam base game. Here, real quick, I have a couple of expansions which I will show you. I'll show you two of them. So I've got the Ya Drang Battle Pack and I got the Hui Battle Pack. They're very similar in style, but we also have the MACV Special Operations Group expansion as well. So if we open up MACV, what we have in here is a bunch more baddies to go up against that we're going to throw into our kind of regular deck. And they do designate, hey, if you're doing the MACV stuff, include these guys, because they'll play around a bit more specially. But then we have the actual soldiers. So we got player soldier, team soldier, non-player soldier, squad soldier. A bunch of new guys. And then we got all their new equipment as well, some of which is like, ooh, suppressed. And they got the grenade-mounted carbine, or big rapid machine gun, sawn-off grenade launcher, suppressed SMG, equipment, and then a bunch of extra skill cards, a bunch of extra missions and locations. It's just more stuffs, right? All the stuff that you might want, and then a couple extra events, right? So when it's those kind of flavor packs, they just give you more stuff, and it's a bit more specifically tailored for what those guys encountered. The battle packs, on the other hand, give you a lot more specialized missions that are historically based, within reason, right, of what they can do. So you do get more soldiers. You'll always get more soldiers in them. More weapons, more equipment, more skills. Not great. Some of those are real bad. But then you're going to get the Ya Drang missions, and there's a couple of those, and then the Ya Drang objectives, Broken Arrow, and then the Ya Drang locations. And these will be, so these are historical pictures from Ya Drang, which I really appreciate. But it's all the locations that you would have expected to be there that were important, that you're going to kind of go through, right? And then all the different events that really affected them. Again, it's just more tailored. And then a bunch of the baddies, just to kind of give you more tailored flavor for Ya Drang, for example, right? So that's what you would get in one of the battle packs. Hui is very similar, but it's Hui, so it's a lot of urban bits and pieces as well. But like I said, that's the kind of stuff that you're looking at in Warfighter Vietnam. I'm extremely excited to play this. I know it's a bit of a long one, but I wanted to go through and kind of explain what all of this is and hopefully wet your whistle on that, because I love Warfighter. Warfighter Fantasy was a big bust. We love Warfighter 2, Warfighter World War II, and this, I've read through the rules. The rules are really, really clean. Oh, that's funny, I didn't show the rules. My rulebook's actually upstairs, because I'm actually reading it, and it is so much better than the old consolidated combined rulebook that they've been using and churning out. They've redone the rules, they're really clear, and it's a huge credit that they've actually gone back and done that and fixed this. So this is a much more approachable and accessible box than some of the other ones have been, with this crazy 90-page rulebook that included rules for 5 different versions of the game, and honestly, it was getting more and more unclear. There is just the Vietnam rulebook, and it's really, really good. I cannot recommend it highly enough. We will get this played. We will let you know how it is. I have extremely high hopes for this, and if it lets me down, I will be bitterly disappointed. However, everything that I've read so far in the rules and with the cards means that I probably will not be. So thank you very much for tuning in. I know this was a bit of a long one, and I've been waffling. But Warfighter Vietnam from DVG. Thanks for tuning in. I've been Alexander for theplayersAid.com.